Bryan Burchfield here at Sweetwater City Hall today. I'm joined by Sweetwater City Administrator Jessica Morgan, and we're doing a little sit down, and we're going to ask all kinds of questions. And so information that hopefully you want to know as citizens. And as we go through this, if you think of a question you would like to ask, we're going to do this on a semi-regular basis. So if you have a question you would like to ask and you're afraid to ask it yourself, you can send me that question, and I'll be glad to ask it for you. But Jessica, thanks for your time.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So let's talk about the title, administrator.
Mm-hmm.
That's different. Everybody's known you for years as the city recorder. Mm-hmm. So tell us about that change and why.
So the Mayor and Board of Commissioners passed a ordinance back in August to establish a position of city administrator. The Sweetwater charter is a home rule charter, so you can't have a city manager in Sweetwater. And we would have to do a charter change for that. And I don't think anybody was really interested in doing that. But city administrator basically just kind of more adequately describes what I had been doing for the city. My job wasn't, strictly restricted to keeping public records and doing finance like most city recorders are. So they thought it was a more apt description. And moving the city forward, it's important that we had a full-time administrative person. You can't rely on part-time elected officials to be able to solve the business portion of running and operating the city. So that's kind of where the city administrator position steps in. It also gave me access to some of the training that's only allowed for administrator or manager titles. So instead of having to go to 4 or 5 different places to try and get resources or training for human resources and finance and risk management and management, we can do one city administrator conference every year and have all of that in one place. So it helped me be a little more efficient. Also, some of the stuff we'll talk about in a little while, it helped clean up some of those job descriptions, some of the roles inside Sweetwater. Obviously, we're a growing community, so it's important that we are able to respond quickly to the needs and not have to wait on someone that's only here part-time to come in and sign something or do something. So a lot of it's related to efficiency. And then the biggest, we talked about this once before, the biggest change in the day-to-day operation is prior to this ordinance, if the city wanted to hire or terminate someone, we had to have a full board vote in a public meeting that was advertised publicly. You can talk to any employment attorney and they're going to tell you that's not a great idea. We're not trying to humiliate people if we have to terminate them. So it would be better if there was a different function. So now the way the city administrator ordinance reads is that the commissioner that's assigned to the department head that's over the department, and me, those 3 can combine to make decisions about hiring and firing. And that's not actually a change from the charter. That was something that was already allowed. It's just this ordinance made it clear that that's how it would operate. In most cases, unless there was something exceptional going on. The mayor and board still have all that authority. They can still hire and fire, but we're not requiring every single termination and every single hiring to go before that full board anymore. So that's really, to me, the biggest change is the training and educational opportunities, and then the human resources piece of it.
So let's tackle maybe some misconceptions, maybe they're not, about this. So this change does not give you any more authority than the board does. Does not give you more authority than the mayor. This does not change the city's charter in that it's managed by one person. It's still a board managed city.
Yeah, I am still an at-will employee. I do not have a contract. I serve at the pleasure and the will of the board. So it would still take and even department head appointments. I am not, the ordinance made it very clear that I'm not over any department heads. I cannot hire and fire department heads. The department head positions and my position have to come before the full board for hiring or termination. So that all of that authority still remains with the board. And the board can take any of that authority at any time and do a full vote on things. It's just they've delegated some of those human resources type things to me. And I think the reason that that's important is when you have an elected official, we are very blessed to have very educated and intelligent elected officials, but that's not always the case. You can get an elected official that has absolutely no training in human resources, and they don't know what the fair labor laws say, and they don't know what any of that human resource law is. And it's important that you have someone that's had some training in that area dealing with those things, because that is one of the areas where cities get sued most often. So hopefully between that and legal counsel, we'll be able to keep that from happening.
Okay. So the next topic, a couple months ago, the state comptroller's office issued a report saying that there had been questionable spending practices by City Hall from 2014 to 2023. Explain.
So this actually was first reported to the comptroller's office. We self-reported it when we had some citizens, making some statements about things. And then those citizens reported it to the comptroller's office. So this started in 2018. And the comptroller's office has been investigating for years now. They've expanded the scope of that investigation twice to try and get more data and more years and more records. And we finally got a report on that. They issued it in December. Mostly, I'm just relieved that it's over. I'm just glad that this, because you never know when they're going to show up. They come into the office and they stay for hours and they pull records and they look through things and, take statements from people. All of our employees. This has been a really disruptive and inefficient, time. So I'm really just mostly glad that it's over. Mm-hmm. And the result of that has been the questionable spending, about 80% of it can be solved by the adoption of policy. So, and there's been another city that's been written up for this lately too. We never had like a policy on when and where we could buy food. So we never had a policy that said when an employee retires after 20 years, you can have a lunch for them. Or if you have the Main Street meeting here at City Hall once a month, which is probably about half of what the questionable spending was, that we can purchase that meal for all of those business owners who come here every month. Or when we have students that do a Shark Tank competition and we buy a meal for all the kids in that class. We never had a policy that said we could say that. So a big part of these issues in the comptroller's office was that all we have to do is adopt a policy authorizing by the full board what things we're allowed to do that for. And that was that was probably $80,000 of the questionable cost. So that can be taken care of relatively cleanly and easily, and the board is now working on developing a policy that'll encompass everything that they want to see happen. I don't know that it's going to make a lot of change in our day-to-day operation. We are still, like one of the examples they gave was swearing in ceremonies. Well, after we have newly elected officials, and pretty much every city does this, has a little swearing in ceremony and you buy cake and stuff like that. That was one of the examples given in the comptroller's report, that we needed to have a policy in place specifically saying we could do that. So the board's working very diligently. We're getting advice from MTAS, which is the Municipal Technical Advisory Service, on making sure we have a policy in place that's going to cover that. Some of the other things, which the most important thing to us was there was no criminal findings. They looked at every department. They looked at, all of our practices. There were no policy violations. There were no criminal findings. I think that's what some of the allegations were. So that was the most important thing to us, that there came back, there was no personal use of any city assets. The report didn't show any of that. So to us, that was, kind of clearing our names of some of that. And that was important to us. But the other things are like internal control deficiencies. One of them is separation of duties. When we were in between payroll clerks, I had to run payroll and also balance gun pay, and I had a deduction on gun pay. So that was like a conflict of having enough internal separation between those positions. When you only have 4 people at City Hall doing those jobs, you're always going to have separation of duties as a concern. So again, hopefully we won't have turnover again, and that won't be in that position, but we're also making some changes into the job roles and duties, and passing that city administrator ordinance is part of that. From now on, the city recorder is Sonia Crush, and she will not be authorizing purchases. She will only be approving purchases. So she'll never be instigating a purchase. It'll always be someone else instigating the purchase, and then Sonia's there to do the approval, that last step, and that'll kind of solve that separation of duties finding. We just got our audit back from the year after this report. This report ended June of 2023. The audit for the year ending June 30th, 2024 just came out. We're posting it. I think Landon posted it on our website today. So anybody can go look at that audit if they want. It addresses the comptroller's report and says that a food policy has to be adopted, just like the comptroller's report said. But other than that, we had no findings on our regular annual audit. So for us, it was a good report to finally have that done and over with. But I think the main thing I would like people to know is if you have any questions about that, we would appreciate if you would just ask. Even if you want to use Bryan as your middleman, get him to ask the questions for you, that's fine. But also email us at City Hall, come by and ask at City Hall, pick up the phone and call City Hall. We have people doing that every day, all day, asking questions about things. So we would much rather you just call and ask and let us, give you an explanation than you being worried about something or have a concern.
And the wording there is important. So comptroller says questionable, not criminal. Questionable from the standpoint there was no policy in place. So now policy on purchasing food is now in place. So those activities are no longer questionable, correct?
That's what we hope. And I told the board in the last meeting, I said, there's probably not a way for us to draft the perfect policy to where we would never have another finding on a comptroller's investigation. But we're all going to put in the work. We're going to ask the experts. We're going to, if there were a model policy for this, we would adopt it. Unfortunately, there's not a model policy for it. We've looked everywhere for one. So we will probably end up being the model policy. We'll probably end up drafting the policy that other cities will then have to use, which, you know, that's one great collaborative thing about the cities in Tennessee is that we have MTAS to help us kind of guide through those things. But I've met with MTAS twice now, and we've got another meeting next week. So this will be a bit of a process to get every policy in place that we think we need to have to where moving forward we won't have to worry about this again. But even then, the state law could change or new things could come up. So I don't know that there's a way to be perfect about it, but we're sure going to put in our best effort on it.
And I know there's going to be some citizens say, well, the city shouldn't be buying food for people, period. And I can see that argument.
Mm-hmm.
But then, too, looking at it from the standpoint of the way the city is growing and things that are going on, having these lunch meetings is really not an option not to have either. So
I point blank asked the board in the last workshop, because we always want to make sure that what we're doing is what the board wants us to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're who set the direction and the policy for where the city's going. So, and they all unanimously agreed that they wanted to continue Main Street meetings. They wanted to continue having festivals. You know, there are some things that we couldn't continue. During the course of this investigation, one of them came up that we were delivering gravel to citizens, and they said that doesn't serve the public purpose doctrine. You have to quit doing that. So one of the results of this comptroller's investigation is we no longer deliver gravel to citizens, which I hate that hurts citizens, that was a service we provided to them. And we wouldn't have known had we not gone through this investigation that was something that was a policy violation that we shouldn't be doing. So there will be good that comes out of this. It'll help us be better. When you know better, you can do better. So we are going to move forward and make it sharper and cleaner and make sure we have better documentation. One of the things they wrote us up for was documentation, not having enough documentation on things. Well, if I'm a regular citizen reading that, I'm assuming that means we had no receipts for anything. And what that actually means is we might have had a receipt for something, but not the packing slip that came in the box. Mm-hmm. Or it might mean that we had the packing slip and not a receipt. Or it might mean that we had a signed statement from the department head, but not some other document that they wanted to see. So government has a very high level when they're audited and in audit. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we had no idea what we were paying. It might have meant, you know, there was one piece of paperwork missing that when you're dealing with $8 million a year, that is bound to happen. And this came up as less than 0.01% of what our total expenditures are for the year. And it is what it is. And we are going to try and, you know, do better moving forward. But again, we don't mind the questions. If citizens want to ask questions about things, that's always much preferred to making accusations. So we're happy to answer questions. We want to give you as much clarity as we can. And but the board has been pretty adamant that they want to see those Main Street meetings continue. They want to see festivals continue. That was another thing that was in the report that was questioned was, is it okay for the city to be participating in these festivals and things? Well, if the city doesn't do it, they're not going to happen. Yeah. So, you know, and that's made a huge impact on our economy, on the amount of tourists we have coming to Sweetwater. So I think the board all feels pretty strongly that they want to continue those things. So now we have to get the right policy in place to kind of protect us.
Q&A with Sweetwater City Administrator Jessica Morgan. Again, we're going to do this on a regular basis. We'll even talk to other city officials from time to time. If you have questions that you don't feel like you're getting answers to, or you just don't want to ask, you're afraid to ask, too shy to ask, well, I'll ask them. So get those questions to me, and we'll do this again on a regular basis. Let's talk about some things going on around town.
Yeah.
That people might be interested in knowing the progress of, or a finished date, those type of things. Circle Park downtown. That's all being renovated. So talk about that.
It is, and that's such a focal point of downtown. I know everybody sees it when they drive by. We did a video on that last week on the Sweetwater Merchants and Property Owners Association Facebook page. If you want more information on Circle Park, that'd be a good place to go look for it, or call City Hall. But the street department is working diligently. They got most of the sidewalks poured. The phases that are left in that project are tree planting, which we have a tree grant through the Sweetwater City Tree Board that they've ordered the trees, and they'll be planting those the next few weeks. We really hope by April 12th to have it kind of calmer down there, like not so so much mud and everything looking a little greener and prettier. We'll be finishing up on plantings throughout the spring. But the big labor intensive work, the last thing we have to do is install the sod and the irrigation system that goes for that. So that'll be a little messy still, but we're really hoping to wrap this up in the next couple of months. And then next year, we're going to have some additional funding to do like an arched entryway sign that goes into the park. And we'll have some benches and a little bit more green space. Some pedestrian amenities to make sure that our pedestrians that are walking on that sidewalk in front of the building are protected. So this process has taken a lot longer than we anticipated it would. Part of that was the design was held up for quite a while we were trying to figure out exactly the right way to do the sidewalks and how pedestrians would actually walk and what was going to be the safest, being right up against Highway 11. So it's going to be a great project when it's done. We did get a grant from the Main Street program, which, you're only eligible for that funding if you're a certified Main Street community. So that was a great opportunity to get part of this Circle Park project funded by that grant.
Speaking of taking longer than anybody wants, let's talk about TMG. Where we at?
So the city has filed a tax lien against the property because the taxes have not been paid on it. They finally settled the valuation lawsuit that she had filed and the use lawsuit saying that it should be tax exempt. We won both of those. So when we filed the tax suit several months ago, the owners in Georgia appealed it to the federal court system. And we just found out a couple weeks ago that was remanded back to the state jurisdiction, which is good. That's where we need it to be. That's where tax sales normally are. So we hope that in the next few months, we will be able to actually sell this property at a tax sale. It's not the perfect solution. It's not, I wish when Mayor Lowe contacted the Japanese right before they sold it to this nonprofit that didn't actually exist, I wish at that point maybe we would have been able to secure the property, because I do think at the very least the city could have prevented it from, becoming the shambles that it has become and the danger that it has become. And that's the main thing I want to tell people is as we prepare for this tax suit, there may be times when there's a temptation to go up there and look around and see what's going on. That is not authorized. You can be arrested for trespassing. It's not a good thing for anybody to be up there. It's dangerous. It has fallen into total disrepair. They have not taken care of the property at all. It is very dangerous to be up there. So we really do not want people up there. It's a nuisance to the neighborhood. The neighbors that live up there have to have people driving by all the time up there, and they're never going up there for good purposes. So, police and fire have had to go up there numerous times. There's been numerous fires. It's a challenge, and the city has appealed to a judge to take ownership of it, and that was denied. We've issued a redevelopment plan, but in order to process that redevelopment plan, we would have had to pay fair market value. So at the time, that was $2.5 million for the property. So the question became, is it worth it for the city to go buy that property for $2.5 million and then have to deal with tearing down parts of it? And all of that is, it's all a challenge. There's nothing easy about this. I wish that there were, but, and I think sometimes that gets mistaken for people not caring about it. People absolutely care about it. I have TMG alumni that call and TMI alumni that call, every few months to find out the status on it. So I really hope that in the next few months we'll be successful at being able to put this on a tax sale to where some developer or somebody can bid in on it and take the property, pay the taxes on it, get it back to a useful piece of property, because it's beautiful property.
Mm-hmm. And just to add some clarity too, the last couple of years, people may have seen that property being mowed. That's not the owner doing that.
No, the city of Sweetwater is going in and mowing that because it's a code violation. So, and then we tax that as a lien back against that property. So when we are able to sell that at the tax sale, there's tens of thousands of dollars in liens against it, where the city has tried to secure the property to keep trespassers out, where we've mowed the property, where we've done different things to try and keep the property safe.
Let's touch on some other projects in town.
You can scoot in a little bit. I kind of scoot up.
Okay, all right. Ready? I probably did this, didn't I?
Yep. You're good.
All right. Touching on a couple other projects in town, the city has acquired some grants. Tell us about the community center, pool, and then whatever else the grants might be helping out with.
Okay. So this is another big part of the city administrator thing is my time is consumed by grants. So right now we have 31 grant contracts. Every one of those grant contracts, every time we do work on it and then we submit a reimbursement request, it has to be signed off by an executive officer.
Mhm.
So that means I was having to wait for the mayor to come by to sign paperwork just so we could get our money back on grants. So that was another thing that really made me happy from an efficiency standpoint is that now on most of those I can sign those without having to wait for someone else to come through. So we have 31 grant contracts. It's over $10 million in grants right this second, open grants that we are currently working on. One of the biggest parts of that is the community center project. Most of you know that we bought the blue building in the middle of downtown right behind the depot from the utility board last January. And we have had surveys done on that. We have had to do radon testing on that building, like all kinds of different tests. The design is underway right now for the community center, and some of the amenities that are going to be in that community center, there'll be indoor basketball, indoor pickleball, indoor volleyball, a stage area, a kitchen area, meeting rooms for the community that people will be able to rent or use to have showers or training or meetings and things. So it's the main building, plus we're adding 2 wings on either side of it. There is the opportunity to do that in phases. We hope that we're able to get the finances where we need them so that we can borrow a portion of it, pay for a portion of it in grant funding. We have about $1.7 million in grants towards that project. And we're estimating the total project cost between $6 and $7 million. It's something that I think the community has wanted for a long time that probably should have been done a long time ago, but we've acquired the property. We've got the design underway. We're doing the environmental stuff for the community development block grant. That's about $1 million grant right now. And we hope to have ready to bid out and start construction before this fiscal year ends in June. So I think you'll start seeing progress on that soon. One of the other big projects we have going on, we have $1 million grant through state LPRF fund, which is Parks and Recreation, to redo the city pool. I'm hoping to be able to show y'all a pretty picture on that soon so you'll know what it's going to look like, but we're redoing the bathhouses and we're salvaging a couple of those areas, like the concession stand will kind of still be in the same place, but we're just freshening up that building. But the pool has been leaking for years. That pool was built in the 70s. I had a blast playing there when I was a kid. Did you ever go to the pool?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good times, good
Yes.
memories. So it's kind of a passion project for a lot of us. From a financial perspective, nobody's public pool makes money. You're only open 3 months in Tennessee because that's what you can get lifeguards to work. And that's when the weather cooperates. And you're not going to make money off a pool. We will never make our money back off this pool. But that's why we're really grateful for the grant funding from the state of Tennessee, and people in the community love it. Last year, we had more people come to the pool than I think we've had in decades. So we made more money off the pool than we normally do. Again, still not breaking even because just to fill up the pool costs $8,000 every year. So, but it costs a lot more when it's leaking that water back out. So it's really important that we get this fixed and we get it fixed right so that we're not going to have to worry about it again for another 50 years.
Okay. Any other projects?
We've got 2 major sidewalk projects going. Hawkins and Linwood paving project is supposed to start early April. We've got a mural grant. 2 more murals are going up in downtown Sweetwater for the 150th, which I'm sure we're going to talk about that too.
Mhm.
There's a lot going on in Sweetwater, and a lot of it is grant funding. We've been very blessed to have a lot of grant funding, both from state and federal sources. So we're taking advantage of that as best we can and trying to make assets that are going to be here for a long time.
Another area of concern that I've heard a couple citizens talk about that I want to address in this interview, traffic in town. Now, it's not a secret that our little town's growing, and then especially 3 o'clock is always a problem in town during the week with school letting out. But increasingly, traffic backed up on Highway 11. People have been talking as this town grows, how is city officials going to handle the roads, the increased use of the roads, number one, and then trying to redirect some of this traffic?
So TDOT came through decades ago and said they were going to expand Highway 11, but then they realized that a lot of the buildings are built all the way up to Highway 11. So you're always going to have a bottleneck on Highway 11 because you can't go, that's where the early buildings in Sweetwater were built. So we're not going to run a highway through those buildings. So that's always going to be a bit of a challenge. I would say we have other alternative routes, and I'm always a little confused why everyone stays on Highway 11 instead of going down Oak Street to bypass all of that Main Street traffic. Maybe they don't like the stop signs. Maybe it's the stop signs
Yeah.
along there. But it is always going to be a challenge during school hours. We have traffic counts on all of that. We know exactly how much it has expanded. You're talking about a 30 to 40% increase over the last 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
in traffic on Main Street. So that absolutely, one, it's good because it helps the businesses and the economy down there. But it's definitely an issue for people who live here, and trying to get through town quickly on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock is not happening anymore. So that's a challenge. And we are staying on top of the data. That's important to us. But really the biggest power the city has in controlling growth is in our planning commission. And we have a really solid planning commission right now. They're doing a very good job of protecting what is special about Sweetwater. We do want to have growth, but we want to have smart growth. We want to have managed growth. There are horror stories all over the United States about towns that had an influx of growth that they couldn't control and they couldn't keep up with, and that their resources weren't enough for. And we do not want to be one of those horror stories. So just as an example, we had, a developer asked to turn 300 acres off Old Athens Pike into a subdivision that had houses literally 5 and 10 feet apart. And we denied that request because the traffic on that road could not handle that kind of influx of vehicles. We have allowed that at the interstate exit. We've approved a request for R4 zoning out at the interstate, which would allow houses only 10 feet apart to be built out near the interstate. But that's because a lot of that traffic will stay on the interstate, just hopping off and on the interstate, and not be so congested in town. So I would just say to the public in general, it's important to have a really solid, strong planning commission. And right now we do, and they're being very protective of Sweetwater, which I think is important. Actually, we removed R4 zoning. The city board voted on this also from our code altogether, so that nobody can put that kind of subdivision in Sweetwater anymore. Only that one parcel that's already grandfathered in at the interstate. We don't have a ton of vacant spaces in Sweetwater, so there is a limit to how much growth will happen in Sweetwater just because there's only so much land available in the area. But one of the things this trickles down to is the paving. So last year, the city board, Commissioner Jinks is over the street department. Her and David Moses, our street superintendent, they developed a 10-year paving plan, and we have that at City Hall if anybody ever wants to see that. But basically, if we have a road that is in bad shape because the traffic has just overwhelmed it and we're going to need to pave it, we're putting that on a 10-year paving plan so that we can kind of look and see what resources we get from the state, from state shared taxes and gasoline tax. That helps go towards paving in our state street aid fund. And that way we can kind of plan for it a little bit better. We are definitely going to have to pave more often. They also came up with a new method for patching. And, before when you would patch a road, people weren't real happy with that because they wanted to have a brand new, fully paved road. Paving is so expensive right now. It is really almost doubled what the cost was just a few years ago. We're using a hot box. So it's a piece of equipment that keeps the asphalt hot, and they can go in and patch it, and they patch it hot, just as if they were paving the road, instead of using a cold mix like we used to patch areas with. So it's a much more efficient, much more long-lasting patching. So they've been working on that the last 2 weeks now that the asphalt plant's back open again and the weather's getting to a decent place. So I think citizens will be happy with the road maintenance on that. It's definitely a better method of making repairs than what we had even just a couple years ago. So sometimes technology is a good thing and helps us get better in a lot of ways.
The positive side to the increased traffic, sales tax, and tourism.
Yeah.
Tell us about sales tax and tourism.
So Sweetwater's always been a tourism area because of the Lost Sea. We're so blessed to have the Lost Sea, and there's 1 million visitors a year that come into the Lost Sea, and they just did their renovation, and it looks great there, and they're very well managed, and it's a really neat asset. By the way, if you're from Sweetwater and you've never been to the Lost Sea, you need to go to the Lost Sea. No matter where I'm traveling, if anybody has ever heard of Sweetwater, they'll say, I went to the Lost Sea. And so it's neat that this is in your own backyard. You should check it out. But that said, we've always kind of had a tourism pool. We're also the gateway. We're the only, interstate exits that lead in Monroe County. So we're kind of the area that people come through when they're going to the Cherahela Skyway or to Tellico Grains Bakery or to, Sully Notch Vineyard in Madisonville. So any of those places, they're pretty much coming through Sweetwater to do. So tourism's always been a big deal. Sweetwater has more hotels than any of the other cities in the county. And, we help fund the tourism department both for the county and for the city. We're creating new assets for that tourism. Just last week, Haley, our city tourism director, combined with some McMinn County representatives and Blana from Monroe County Tourism, and they hosted a training session for people who are on the front lines of tourism. So that included like staff from the State Visitor Center, so they can help know what's going on in Sweetwater, Monroe County, and McMinn County, and push people this way. So we're also doing a brochure for our mural trail. So now that we have murals everywhere, people love to see where those are, and they love to take pictures with them and things like that. So we're creating a brochure that people can use for that. That'll go out to different visitor centers. The short film is a project we produced last fall with AB Studios. This is someone we met through the Knoxville Entrepreneurship Center. She was a coach for businesses several years ago, and just last year, a couple of years ago, she started a production company. And her focus was to like take a small town and build a story around that small town and the businesses in that small town and make a short film out of it. So the film's only like 7 minutes long. You can see it on our city website at sweetwatertn.gov. It's had like 30,000 views. Like it's getting good traffic. We've sent it to film festivals. We hope that one day we can make a feature film here in Sweetwater. But what it's done in the interim is we kind of pushed it for Valentine's Day because it's a rom-com. So, it's my dream to have a Hallmark movie here in Sweetwater one day that I tell everybody all the time. So we did this for Valentine's Day, and we actually saw double the amount of traffic on Valentine's Day as we had for previous years. We had several businesses say it was the best day they've had so far in 2025. So that's just kind of one example of some of the things we're doing to try and generate more money staying here locally in Sweetwater. It stops that retail gap and that retail leakage, and it helps our business owners succeed. And that's been a big part of Sweetwater's success, is that tourism with the festivals and the different things that we're doing. We set a goal 10 years ago that sales tax would be our number one revenue, and now it is more than 2.5 times what property tax is for revenue. So the business owners have a lot to do with that. The Main Street program has a lot to do with that. The city board has a lot to do with it. But it's really important that our business owners are successful. They're the ones that are contributing to your Little League team and your projects that are going on at the high school and things like that. So we want to see those small independent owned businesses succeed, and they certainly have helped the city be successful with our sales tax revenue, which is really important because it means we'll be able to go 10 years in between property tax increases instead of having one every 4 or 5 years. So that's important to the people that own property inside Sweetwater.
A Q&A with Sweetwater City Administrator Jessica Morgan. It's obviously a long form interview. We're going to do several of these on a regular basis. So if you have questions for Jessica or any other city official, let me know. You can go on the radio station website, email me through there. Most people know my email address or cell phone number. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be glad to ask them for you. Now, moving on, this is an election year in Sweetwater.
It is.
June the 12th is election day in the city, and qualifying deadline is this Thursday, March the 20th.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, not many people have thrown their hat in the ring.
It's true.
Yeah.
Right this second, I think we have one candidate for mayor. Mayor Lowe is not going to run again. He served, I think, 16 years here for the city of Sweetwater, and he's decided that he'd like to have a little bit of his life back, and I don't blame him. So we've got one candidate for mayor, and we've got 3 commissioner candidates that have turned in petitions so far, and then there's 2 people running for school board also. I think there's only 2 vacancies in school board, and there's 2 vacancies for the city board. So one of the new things we're doing this year is I'm doing a candidate forum for all of the candidates that turn back in their qualifying petition. We're going to have an informational session for them, and that'll be Thursday night after the petition deadline. And we'll just kind of go through some of this stuff, like the projects that are happening right now for the city, kind of how the board meetings operate, what the responsibilities are for the commissioner and the mayor. So hopefully we'll get them really well informed so that they go in with their eyes wide open, and then maybe you'll have you don't call it a debate.
It's a forum.
You call it a forum.
Yeah, we're not candidates. I always do a forum, and we'll do that again for this upcoming city election. It's not a debate where the candidates are going back and forth with each other. I ask everybody the same question, and they give an answer, and then you as a citizen can see which answer you like best, and maybe to help you form your vote. So that'll be coming up closer to election. But
and by the way, you guys do a really good job with that. I always love your election coverage too. I'm usually at home listening to you all, you and Jim and Charlie and Tommy and whoever else gets on there. You guys do a great job with that, and I think it is a really good way to keep the citizens informed about things. So make sure you're paying attention to WMTY and following their Facebook page.
Thank you for that plug. I'll pay you for that later. So March 20th, this Thursday, is the qualifying deadline. So if you're on the fence, you're thinking about, I would like to run for mayor or commissioner, school board, whatever, you need to get your petition in this Thursday.
Yeah.
And
also,
the
I
election
would
on the
just
12th.
say, let's encourage these people. Let's, try and be kind and encouraging to them, because this is not something that you make a lot of friends at. Usually you're going to lose a friend or two being an elected official in a small town. So I am so grateful that we have such good human beings serving in these capacities, and hopefully we'll get more of those after this next election.
Election day, June 12th. Okay.
And early voting starts like in May, so you have ample
Yeah.
opportunity to cast your vote in this election. But I do feel like some of the people that have moved into the area, some states like California will mail out a whole booklet of what the candidate's platform is and all the things that they want to prioritize. And so they're used to getting a lot of information about candidates. And that's not what we do here. And I think that probably you doing your forum might be the way that most people find out what each of the, if they don't know them personally, that would be the way to find out. So anybody new that's moved in, make sure you're following that Facebook page and paying attention whenever that forum comes up.
And that's not done here because that costs money to produce that book,
Oh, yeah.
which we higher
Yeah.
taxes, that sort of thing.
Also, these elections are bipartisan. Let me put that out there. The city election in Sweetwater, Tennessee is bipartisan. You don't have to declare you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. This is just what human being is going to do the best job for our city.
Yeah. All right. So election year 2025, big year. Also a big year for the city of Sweetwater because it's the 150th year of incorporation.
It is.
So if people not heard about this yet, tell them about it. You've been planning all kinds of events
Yes.
for a year, I guess, leading up to this.
So the city of Sweetwater turns 150 technically on December 8th, 2025. That will be our very last event for the year. We've already had an opening candlelight service in January to kind of kick us off. The Sweetwater Elementary School students did a wonderful job singing a song that Erica Watson Sutton found called Sweetwater. And the kids sang that song. It was great. So we had a little candlelight service to kick it off. We had the 150th Decades concert in February. That was a big hit. We had Doc McCampbell's concert this past Saturday as part of this 150 events. We have a whole website dedicated to it, and there's an event almost every month this year. We're going to have an old-fashioned fair in September. We've got Founders Day coming up on April 12th. We've got a lot of work going into that. You can take guided tours of the historic walking tour and sign up for those. We've got a fashion show through the decades, the Lily Pad sponsoring, where they go through all the different decades and show fashion from that. And that'll be fun. So, and we have vendors, and it'll be kind of like a fair or festival. On April 12th, we're dedicating the mural. I think our state representative, Lowell Russell, is going to be dedicating a resolution about the city that day. So it's going to be a great day. That's our next big event, is April 12th. And then our fire truck, our antique fire truck, turns 100 years old this year. So we're going to celebrate that at our 4th of July this year. And then in September, we're having a fair. Then we'll have a musical written by Josh Isaac in November. Those have become very popular. It's been Main Street's biggest fundraiser the last 2 years in a row. So we'll have one this year that is specifically about home, being Sweetwater, Tennessee. So it's going to be a great story. Maybe I can drag Bryan on stage to fill one of those roles. Do you sing? Do you dance?
Good or...
So anyway, it's a great year. But Bryan is serving on the 150th committee, along with Tommy Millsaps and Larry Anderson and so many other people that have, Larry Rodgers, just people that have volunteered so much time. Anita Fioravanti, just wonderful people that have come and helped us pull together all these events. And one of the major projects, in fact, I think I told Bryan, if we don't do anything else this year but get this book out, this is what I want to happen.
This is the Holy Grail.
This is the Holy Grail. Let me tell y'all, this has been so much work.
And this needs to be the thumbnail to this video, Landon, by the way. So people...
Yeah.
Now, a year's worth of work. Tommy Millsaps, Jessica Kent. Of course, my co-workers up at the Farragut Press in Knoxville. That newspaper is part of our radio company. Tony and Cindy up there. Did a great job designing this. But it started out, we were going to do 120 something pages.
Sure, yeah.
It's over 200 pages, which is why some of you may be wondering, where's the book? Our intentions were to have this available to actually purchase the book itself for Christmas, and you could wrap it up. And well, making a book like this, sometimes things don't go as planned, and so we've had a few setbacks, but it's done.
The setbacks were mostly we really wanted to include more content. Like we just
Yeah.
kept running across cool stuff that we thought
Yes.
needed to be included in.
Yeah, nothing bad. Is we kept finding things. Oh, we need to do this, and then proofing something like this is a bear. And Jessica Kent did a great job. But so it's done. This is the proof copy, and we are expecting this back from the printer any day.
Mhm.
So those of you that pre-ordered, was a big response pre-order.
Mhm.
You'll be getting your book soon, and then people that are waiting to buy, those will be available here at City Hall soon.
Mhm.
This is
And
one
actually,
time
the
I've
link-
said through this interview, call me, contact me. This is the one time I'm going to say, training this book, if you want a book, do not contact me.
Don't call Bryan. Bryan sold ads and put the book together,
Yeah,
but
the city. So that's
Call us.
so people have asked that too. So we worked with the city, the radio station. We produced this book. We sold ads, and that covered our expenses in producing the book. Then we were done. We gave the project to the city. The city is going to sell the books to help cover the print cost. So that's how that's working for people that. Well, I'm just offering that information just so you know, because I want you to know how this project, how we teamed up on this.
and thank you to everybody that bought ads in it. That did help, help us get this produced. And everybody that's bought one, we ended up ordering like 500 books because we had such a big response. I think we sold almost 300 in pre-orders, and so we'll have a limited amount left. We can do another order later on, but it'll be more time. So we're still taking orders right now on our website, sweetwatertn150.com. sweetwatertn150.com. And you can go there now, or you can come to City Hall and order the book. The people that paid for shipping will be automatically shipping those out after we get the books in. Everybody else, I think, was local pickup. So we'll post about it. We'll have Bryan post about it. We'll have Tommy post about it. We'll have everybody
We'll do a
post.
video on this too, just specifically. We'll get Tommy in here and do a video, and Jessica maybe. This book, and I'm gonna have a terrible time thumbing through this, but it's broken up by decade, in chronological order, and there's a ton of pictures in there. Probably close to 300 pictures, I would say.
It's a really good quality book too. I don't know how much you can tell on the camera, but like it's a hardback. We wanted to have a hardback book, like something people would do as a coffee table book or something, like something that you would pass down or keep forever. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's great content. Good job, everybody that worked on it.
And we were conscious, and we appreciate the businesses who bought an ad sponsored this, but we also were conscious of, we didn't want people to get a book and feel like, hey, this is a book full of ads. We kind of limited the ads and we spaced them out. So it's predominantly content. So don't feel like you would be getting a book full of ads, even though there's some great businesses in there that you're going to want to see their ads.
There's the pool.
Yeah.
It's an old pool, y'all. We need to fix it up. And there's where we built the gazebo.
So any day, for those of you who expect literally any day, that you should be getting these back from the printer.
And then we do get to the color years eventually. It's not all black and white. It is a color printed book. So nice. You did such a good job, Bryan. Thank you, Jessica and Tommy and Larry
Printing
Anderson
expressions.
and Printing Expressions,
Sherry,
Sherry McKee.
yeah. Mhm.
Great job on all of that. So pretty interesting. I'm excited. Only a handful of us have got to see everything that's in it so far. So we're the secret keepers, I guess. But
Yep.
it's a great product. And now they're selling for $40. You can get them at City Hall or online at sweetwatertn150.com.
Okay. I've run through everything I had listed. Do you have anything else that you would like to mention in this Q&A?
I just want to put a plug in, I think, for our city departments. I'm super excited right now about this year in particular because it's our 150th, but we have such good leadership right now. We have so many good department heads. All of our departments are running efficiently, and I think the best part about it is we have people who really care about Sweetwater and want Sweetwater to thrive and be the best little community that we can be. I think our team is the strongest now that it's ever been, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that can do. We've had very little turnover the last couple of years, so we're all kind of solidly working together, especially in those key leadership positions. We have wonderful police chief and fire chief and street superintendent, and parks and rec director and city planner, and all of those people are so key in what happens day to day in the city. So I'm really happy with them. And of course, our mayor and board of commissioners are kind of the gel that keeps everything running. They're the ones that make policy decisions and make sure that we're heading in a direction that's going to be positive for Sweetwater. So I'm really proud of the team that we have right now, and I think Sweetwater's going to have a really good year, and I'm excited that you're a part of that, Bryan.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your time. I hope people enjoy this. We'll do it again.
Let's do it again.
And I'm serious. If you have a question, I don't care what it is. If it's completely crazy, then I won't ask it. You know what? I don't know
At
what
least
it
not on camera.
I mean something just completely. But if it's pertaining to the city and a question that you have, a concern or anything like that, get it to me and I'll be glad to ask it. And so we invite you again back next time when we do this.
Sounds good.
Thank you.